104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. Broadcasting from the Lorenz Plumbing, Heating, and Air Studios. Your home for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Touchdown! Kansas City!
It's Ned Talk, your live and local Chiefs pregame show. Hosted by Ned Reynolds, Joe Western, and the B-Team. Proud members of the Chiefs Radio Network on 104.7 The Cave.
Well, Ned, we've got a gorgeous Sunday to sit around here and talk about sports, but I see you're still wearing your heavy coat.
Well, but notice the color of it.
Yeah.
It's an Eagles green, thank you.
Oh, my.
That just painted me in a bad light, I understand.
When will it be warm enough for you?
Maybe August the 1st, somewhere around there. It's never, ever warm enough. No. Never.
I always tell people I don't fear hell. I live in Missouri during August.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm Joe Weston, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts. We're triumphant today. We've decided.
Yep.
Alex got out sick, so we're holding down the fort for Alec and talking sports today. And we're full swing into the NFL offseason, their version of the hot stove. I don't know what you would call their version of it, but big move for the Chiefs this week. They traded Joe Thuney. What'd you think of that move, Ned?
Well, I'm a little surprised, and yet I'm not surprised. I think it's indicative of where the Chiefs are in the salary cap, and that is they don't have a whole lot of room to work with. They needed some room. And Thuney, while he's still a good player and still very productive, he is 32 years old, and that's getting to the point where you're probably year by year, maybe even game by game. Of course, that's the case in the NFL with anybody, but by the same token, the older you get, the more prone you are. So I'm assuming what they said was, okay, we can get a deal for him. We can unload the $16 million a year that he's making, and that'll give us some room on the salary cap. And it did. Chicago Bears took him. The Chiefs got a fourth-round draft choice out of it, and I'm sure they can work very effectively. Kansas City's a very smart ball club when it comes to utilizing the draft as it is. But no, a surprise, yes, from the fact that he's a Super Bowl holdover and has been an effective part of their 3 championships. But the fact is that he's still a good player. You have to give something to get something. And I noticed yesterday with a measure of surprise that when the story came down about Xavier Worthy and his problems, the Chiefs within hours, of hearing that announcement, signed Hollywood Brown. Now, he's a free agent, but his name hadn't been mentioned among the most coveted of the free agents there are. But immediately upon that, I thought, there's a knee-jerk reaction here. Maybe Kansas City knows something. Well, the case has been dropped.
Yeah, we could talk about all of that. Let's go back to Joe Thuney, though, for just a second. And I think it's worth mentioning to everybody that fourth-round draft pick that the Chiefs got is a 2026 draft pick.
Yeah, it's not this year.
Not in this year's draft. So when we've been talking, and everybody that's an NFL pundit that's been talking about the Chiefs and what happened to them in the Super Bowl, obviously the offensive line's the big issue. You trade one of your all-pro offensive linemen. You're not solving your big problem. Do you think, Josh, or let's start with you, Ned, do you think the Chiefs are going to try to resolve all this in the draft?
Absolutely. There's no way they don't do it. They'll be checking all the offensive linemen, and maybe, without knowing, maybe they already have an individual who they've picked out. After all, who'd ever heard of Patrick Mahomes
right.
college athlete or pundits had, but nobody else had. And the Chiefs draft up to the 10th place, trade up to 10th place to get him. Nobody ever heard of him. Well, these people are smart. They know exactly what they're looking for, and it could be they have an offensive lineman already picked out, or it could be that they'll go to the free agent market with the extra amount of money, not that it's a whole lot. I know they dumped $16 million on the Chicago Bears, but that can disappear pretty quickly. Maybe they already have somebody penciled in from the free agent market that's going to fit that bill.
Josh, what do you think? I mean, you're an offensive lineman, a former one. I'm a former offensive lineman. Do you like this move at all?
Well, at first I thought, man, it's like you said, they're creating more of a problem instead of addressing the problem. But then I thought about what Ned just said. They're getting so much value out of him that it will allow them, hopefully, to get 2 or 3 really quality offensive linemen or draft picks that turn into what they need them to. I think it's a move for the future, or the immediate future, I guess you could say, because I mean they're not rebuilding by any means, but I think in the long run, I trust what they do in the draft, and I didn't used to when they had the former general managers, but these guys know what they're doing, and because they've proved that with what they've put together. So I think they have a plan. And Ned, you may be right. They may have their eye on a free agent that's not going to cost them as much, that's still an All-Pro or close to an All-Pro. So I guess we'll see.
There's been rumors about a possible trade for that Trey Smith is on the trade market as well, too.
Well, and that's a misleading point that a lot of folks don't realize. Yes, he is the franchise player, but yes, he is allowed to talk with other teams. Now, here's what makes me a little dubious about that, Joe, is that if he stays with the Chiefs, and I think he will, he earns $23,400,000 a year. That's the highest paid in the National Football League. Now, you tell me that another team is going to be able to match that? Oh, I think that's very, very unlikely. If they do, and Smith agrees that, hey, I'll take that money, then the Chiefs have the option to match that and reclaim him. I don't think that Smith is going anywhere, but you're right, he is eligible, even though he is the franchise player.
You mentioned the Xavier Worthy story. When you just read the headlines to the story, it looks really bad. But when you kind of dive into the story, what I read was there was an altercation at his home. There was a female family member there that he asked to leave. She would not leave. She attacked him and scratched his face, and then he apparently choked her or put her in a chokehold. And she wanted to press charges. He did not want to press charges. And since then, the authorities have decided not to press charges. So something or nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, your first statement makes me chuckle, though, because what have we – and you're on my case about this.
What?
About the media overreacting, and that's how they get their headlines. What was the one that I saw yesterday? Wash, rinse, dry, do it all over again. Because this is exactly what happened with Rashee Rice and with Tyreek Hill and people like that. They thought they were being funny. Well, you look at that, oh, my God, another situation. The case has been dropped. The district attorney is not going to pursue it. That means that Worthy, as long as he walks the straight and narrow, is going to be okay, and he'll be with the Chiefs and so forth and so on. But the fact of the matter remains, when you get my profession, which has changed so markedly from when I got into this business, it makes me ill to see what the tactics that are used, and it's not right. It is not right at all.
On the surface, the story is he's involved, he's arrested for assault, but then when you read the whole story, it looks like maybe he was defending himself in this particular situation. It wasn't like it can be overblown. I think it is a little bit overblown in this case.
That's the sensationalism that Ned's talking about, that the media wants that soundbite, that headline, that one sentence that grabs you and makes you click on that so that they get those
what was the name?
Ratings.
Paul Harvey. And now the rest of the story.
Right. Right.
Well, there's always another story.
Yeah, thank goodness they printed the entire story instead of just continuing on that path of, oh, here's another Chiefs player that's a domestic assaulter, Now,
the one backsliding in that whole story is the NFL. Doesn't matter if you're guilty or not. The NFL takes a very dim view of any kind of assault along those lines. So it could be, and I'm just speculating here, it could be that the NFL comes up with some kind of a suspension of some sort. I think they will with Rashee Rice, if that case ever gets resolved in the courtrooms. It is not now at the moment, nor has any of the legal authorities imposed any kind of penalty on him. But his charges are rather substantial over what Worthy's are.
That's a totally different animal.
Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, your local live sports talk show. Ned Reynolds, Joe Westen, Josh Roberts sitting around. We're talking about the Chiefs and the offseason in the NFL. And, of course, you mentioned Hollywood Brown being re-signed. Do you think that was a knee-jerk reaction, or do you think it was part of the plan?
That's a good question, Joe. I'm of the opinion, and being the cynic that I am, that it was a knee-jerk reaction because he had not been mentioned. Hey, the Chiefs have some key free agents who have not been addressed. Now, here you have Trey Smith, and he's the franchise player, so he can be the only one. That's the way it is, only one. But look who they have. Nick Bolton, Justin Reed. They have all these guys who are free agents who are going to command a lot of money. I wouldn't be surprised to see 1, 2 of them maybe go. I'd hate it, so would any Chiefs fan. But you've got to play within the financial limitations of what you have. Keep in mind that the salary cap in the NFL has never been breached by any team. It has never happened.
Oh, wow.
And the NFL does not want it to happen. They will work with you to work around this thing. They do not want any team violating that rule. If it is, it's a pretty substantial fine, but it hasn't happened. There are a number of teams in the NFL, I think it's 5 right now, who are over that limit, who by Wednesday, like in 72 hours, have to cut down and get within that. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if tomorrow and Tuesday and maybe early Wednesday, it's Wednesday at 3 o'clock, I think, when free agents can begin to negotiate. Well, I wouldn't be surprised to see a number of big names. Joey Bosa, for instance.
Has been cut.
He's cut.
Von Miller got cut today.
Von Miller from the Buffalo Bills and Denver Broncos. Mostly the Bills. He gets sliced, and these are all players who could continue to play, but for the team that's letting them go, it's going to help them with their salary cap.
Well, if you were excited that the Chiefs dumped $16 million, they just used $11 million of that on Hollywood Brown on a 1-year deal.
They did. They did. Mm-hmm.
You got $5 million there to play with. $5 million. Any of you guys want to sign for $5 million to play with the Chiefs?
I'll do it for half of that.
You sure?
$2.5 million.
$2.5 million?
Yep.
Okay. We'll give them a call, see what they want to do.
Call them up.
I mean, you mentioned it, Ned, the names and the movement that's going on. The Raiders made a big move. They got Geno Smith in a trade, which has shocked a lot of people.
Shocked me. Geno Smith is not a kid.
No.
He's approaching the mid-30s right now, and while he was a very fine player at West Virginia and with the Seattle Seahawks, he was a backup when he was elevated to the starting position, backup because of a number of circumstances that occurred with Seattle, but he was able to play and play well, and now the Raiders are probably taking a pretty big chance with him, because he's probably only going to be good for 1 or 2 years at the most, but Geno Smith does have the advantage of having an old coach right there, Pete Carroll, and that will help them immeasurably. And I'm sure that Pete Carroll had a lot to do with that trade being made.
One big free agent apparently is off the market. It looks like Myles Garrett has been signed today by the Cleveland Browns. They have offered him $40 million per year.
Wow.
A guaranteed $123.5 million.
He made a lot of noise about leaving the team, and I think the Browns took that seriously. And the Browns have taken a lot of criticism from the media, and indeed, probably in a viewpoint, made that very disturbing to whether or not this franchise is really going anywhere at all. The next one, now because the Browns have signed Garrett, the next one to come under media attention is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And have they done anything that's substantial? I'm sorry Alec isn't here today to defend his ball club, but the Steelers have not really shown any level of improvement at all and haven't had to. I guess that's the way they think. But the fact is that Myles Garrett, I think Myles Garrett probably campaigned for himself with the Browns and probably wanted to stay with them.
Could you see Joseph going to somebody like the Steelers?
I can.
Yeah.
I sure can. I can see him also going to a number of teams. Now, I'm going to take another look at the list, but the last one I saw on the most money to have in your favor on the cap space is New England. And I can see Bosa going there, and he would help the New England Patriots infinitesimally.
Yeah, they need a lot of help.
Yeah, they really do. And that's a possibility. Yeah, him, Von Miller will go somewhere, maybe not right away, but those guys will all be picked up by somebody. They're too valuable in their talent standpoint, but yes, they are asking a lot of money, and that does have to figure into it. But as free agents, they can negotiate whatever they want. It's not a contract that you're buying. It's a new contract altogether.
Yeah.
So I saw a list the other day of one of the NFL pundits and what he thought, who was going to stay with the Kansas City Chiefs and who was going to be gone. We didn't really say who was going to be gone. You just, by subtraction, you could tell who's not going to be there. One name that really shocked me on this person's list was Nick Bolton.
He has been, according to all the reports, he has been approached by the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm sure they have the wherewithal to make it very worthwhile. That would surprise me a little bit, Joe, because he's the Chiefs' defensive captain. He's the one who calls the signals for the defensive unit in there, and he's a very sharp, hard-hitting guy out of Mizzou. Bolton can play the game. Now, you take a look at his numbers, and I think he averaged like three tackles a game or something, which doesn't look like a whole lot. But for a linebacker in his position, that is substantial. He's a disruptor, the same as a lot of these other guys, and can play the game. Well, that would surprise me a little bit. Does it list Justin Reed on there as well?
The list I saw, if I can remember correctly, the story's not in front of me, is that this person expected Jody Fortson to come back. They expected DJ Humphries to come back, Kareem Hunt, Derek Nottie, Mike Pennell, Justin Reed, and I believe that's it. Those 5 players were the ones that he really expected to be re-signed by the Chiefs.
You're going to have to spend a lot of money to get them back. That's just it. But the Chiefs, with their salary cap, may already have that penciled in, so it may not be that big a subtraction to them. But those are key free agent players. The one thing that Kansas City guards against, and they have taken measures to do this for the last 40 or 50 years. You guys are too young to remember when Kansas City beat the Minnesota Vikings in the Super Bowl in 1970. Well, Hank Stram, who was a bit nostalgic, as was the Chiefs front office, kept those guys around. The Buck Buchanans,
right.
The Ernie Ladds, the people of that caliber, and Lenny Dawson, the running backs. They kept them. They kept them way beyond their capabilities, and as a result, you had a team that slid into really a disarray in terms of being competitive.
Let me ask you this question, because all the numbers with the NFL and how they work, all that juggling and math that they do, I don't fully understand now. While you guys were talking, you sat here and counted 20 Chiefs free agents. Does that mean that the Chiefs roster without these free agents is at roughly $6 million underneath the cap?
Can't tell you what the specific number is, but yes, they would be underneath the cap.
So the 35 players that they have left or so, they take up that much of the cap?
Oh gosh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of money.
That's going to be a lot of restructuring then.
Well,
right.
It's the rules the way the NFL has this, and it's so complicated. I mean, you have to have Harvard or Princeton as your academic background, although I did read a story today about how those universities are overrated.
Wow.
My degree was from one of them.
That was from a Cornell guy, I assume.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter remains, though, that there is so many adjuncts to that and restructuring, and Mahomes is the one who's done most of the restructuring on here, and he may be called upon again. I'll say one thing in Patrick Mahomes' favor in terms of that: he's been willing to play ball.
He wants to win.
That's
the most important thing, and he knows he's going to get his money, and he's made a lot of money. There's a word I could use right there: a ton of money. And so I think he knows that other guys need to get paid, and they want to stay competitive, and he doesn't want to be, when he retires. Remember the first 7 years of Patrick Mahomes' career, they were fabulous. In the last 8, they were kind of crap. He knows that he's got to be the guy that steps up and does those things. That's a leader.
Described by the media after the Super Bowl game as, quote, being in tears, end quote. Now, that's the media. That may have been an over-description, but I think he takes a lot of this personally. He knows fully well where he stands, that he is probably the best quarterback not only now, but over the past decade or 2 decades in the NFL, that he can do a lot of things that many other QBs have not done. And yet I don't think that puts him in the category of an egomaniac. He's not that at all. He's just taking advantage of what his name is with the commercials and so forth.
Yeah.
He does pretty well with them.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I think he's a leader. I think the Chiefs need him to pursue every single venture that they have. Yeah, he's the key to the franchise. He knows it, and he knows he's kind of like I would describe him a baseball player, kind of like a Derek Jeter type.
Yeah.
A quiet leader.
Michael Jordan, that kind of guy.
Michael Jordan's another one, right.
Exactly.
Well, and that's what I respect about Mahomes is that he truly sees it as we can't succeed with just me getting paid, bukus of money. We got to get all these other players in here and keep them. So whether it's him restructuring his contract so that he has some other money on the back end, or if he says, hey, I'm going to do 5 more commercials because I'll get paid a lot of money on those and that'll make up this difference. I mean, he's a smart guy too. And so he's making plenty of money so that he's able to restructure that contract and say, let's get this guy back in here because I know he's going to help us.
When we come back, we'll talk, we'll continue this conversation. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts. We're sitting around talking about sports like we do every Sunday at noon right here on 104.7 The Cave, your home for the Kansas City Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. Talking about the Chiefs, talking about NFL free agency, a lot of things happening and shaking this last week. I think this next week will be even more interesting, as you said.
It will be. It'll then. Now, keep in mind that the free agent negotiations can begin. The NFL has this paradox that they have in their law called legal tampering. Now, what in heavens, if that's not a paradox, I don't know what is, but legal tampering, well, the legal tampering can begin on Tuesday. That means you are allowed to see whether or not Josh Roberts is available for free agency. That's all that means.
Is.
The talking,
Always.
The actual negotiating begins this coming Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Then the negotiations in all seriousness can begin, but they've gone on before this. That law is violated. Nobody does anything about it at all. So, but in terms of the date, that's when you'll see a lot of names that are forthcoming. Although the negotiating period goes right up until training camp, so it's going to be going on all of the spring and the early summer and so forth and so on.
Who chose 3 p.m.? I mean, that seems like an incredibly arbitrary time.
Well, it's 4 o'clock New York time, and the world begins and ends in New York City. So 4 o'clock is when everybody abandons the business and go out to the bar.
Well, see, I was thinking that maybe that's when they got off the golf course. They played golf.
Same thing.
They had a few drinks. They took a shower. They're in their suits. Now they can negotiate contracts. Is that why it's at 3 p.m.?
That's what it is, yeah.
It's very strange.
That is strange because, even what you're saying, you'd think it would be 4 p.m. because then it'd be 5 o'clock in New York when everybody actually does get off work.
Or supposed to, but it's before then.
They're beating the crowd. They're beating the traffic.
That's called the subway dismissal, right?
Right.
They're on Australian time. I had a friend who did some work in Australia for a while, and he said it was really bizarre about between 3 and 4 every day. They're like, all right, let's just quit, and they went to the bar every day. Every day.
Nice.
Kind of interesting. Would you like that? I'm sure you would.
Me?
Yeah,
you bet your sweet behind I would have loved that.
You bet your sweet bippy I'd like that. All right, it looks like at this point that a lot of the movements being made on the defensive side of the ball. Myles Garrett gets paid big-time money. A couple older guys. Joey Bosa's not that old, though, is he?
Oh, no. But he's a big contract.
And he's been pretty beat up over his career, too.
Yeah, he seems fairly injury-prone throughout his professional career.
Well, do you think he's going to attract big money somewhere?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely do, because he's still very capable of being an important cog in anybody's defense, a real disruptor, not along the lines of Chris Jones, but still very effective at what he does. You saw the problems he gave Mahomes. Now, I know the Chiefs on a regular basis beat the Los Angeles Chargers, but by the same token, Bosa's in that backfield all the time and creating all sorts of problems. Yes, he can be a very big help to some team.
And Max Crosby, of course, picked up a big deal, too.
He's with the Raiders, though. He's with the Raiders, and he's another one who's just a tough hombre.
Yeah.
Just a criminal.
Well, it's kind of interesting to see, where NFL teams focus at. And, of course, this is just the start of all this stuff. So, early on, it looks like teams are focusing on either subtracting or adding defensively. And a couple of big names will be out there on the defensive side of the ball as far as guys that you could bring in that maybe can make a difference here or there. They're not going to be Von Miller's certainly not the guy that he was at one point in his career, but he's still a guy that you're going to probably pencil down for 3, 4, 5 sacks a season. He's a good run stopper, and he's a leader. If you have
the financial leverage to be able to do that, sure. He's a guy who's a good backup, come in off the bench and really create all sorts of problems for the offense. But on a consistent basis, you're right, Joe. He can't do it now, play in and play out and game in and game out. He's going to have to be used in selective purposes. That's why his name it'll be added by one team, but it may not be for anywhere near the amount of money that he had been making, number one, and it may not happen right away. A lot of it depends on the availability of space on the team and how much money he's asking and so forth and so on. Von Miller can get away with asking very little to keep on playing because he's already made a lot of money. A lot of money.
It's true.
Interesting moves. I wanted to talk to you about this just in thinking about some of the things you've said to us in the past about this free agency round that we're going through. Now the Chiefs don't have a lot of money to play with here. I don't know where it sits at right now, probably 10, 11 million.
I'm going to say 10 or 11, somewhere around there.
On the flip side of that, New England Patriots have a lot of money to play with. Do you see them making a huge splash in free agency, or are they going to try to build incrementally?
That's difficult to say because you don't know what Mr. Kraft has in mind as far as running that team is concerned, but they'll have the availabilities, certainly, of going to the free agent market and getting some key people. The interesting thing about it is the Patriots, they were so dominant in football for so long. Now they've gone through some lean years. Well, the fans in New England are starting to clamor now for, hey, let's get back to where we were. Let's get back to being a contending team. And that's exactly what the NFL wants. They want that cycle of good, bad, and back to good again, and that's how you keep the interest going. I'm afraid, and I know certain individuals will castigate me for that. It's going to happen to the Chiefs. The same thing will happen there. Go through a down period. It may be forthcoming now, may not be, who knows. But sustaining a lengthy period of winning in the NFL is dictated against you by the league with the draft, with the salary cap, and with any number of other little adjuncts that they put in there that really do go against a team creating a dynasty. The NFL doesn't want that. They do not. And look what's happened in Major League Baseball. The NFL definitely does not want that to happen.
I like that, Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's hard in sports, period, to kind of create a dynasty no matter what sport it is because just attrition and just change in philosophies. Sometimes organizations react poorly. Sometimes ownership changes in a team. For a while, the Yankees were owned by CBS, and CBS did not care that they were a good team or not. And that team did not play good baseball for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. And that's a long time. That's a long time to play bad baseball. And the same thing is very true of the NFL. And you see it teams like the Raiders, at one time the winningest team in NFL history. Now, if you tell a kid that's born, like my son, who's 27, he's never seen but one maybe good Raiders team in his whole life.
They aren't there. Yeah. They are not there because of, with Mr. Davis passing on from the scene and his son taking over, and his son doesn't have the same concept that Papa had. Thinks he does.
Or hair.
but the fact is they have not been able to maintain that level. Moving from Oakland to Los Angeles, back to Oakland, and then moving to Las Vegas, and that really has not solidified the team in terms of having a solid base to where you're going. So that has dictated against them being any kind of a legitimate constant threat. Still, their time will come. They're going to be a pretty good football team. May not be right away, but they will be okay.
We'll continue talking about this when we come back. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Joe Westen, Josh Roberts, and I want to point out this. Alex Scott's not here today because he's sick. Ned Reynolds, car accident, here today.
No. Sitting
in his chair. He didn't have a car accident today,
no.
But he had a car accident last week, and he's here today. Way to go. You're so tough.
Not really.
The consummate professional.
No.
The show must go on, Ned.
2025 for Ned, surgery and a car accident, and he's still in here kicking butt.
After that incident happened, and this went through my mind after the incident was last Wednesday that it happened, and I sat back. You know what? This just isn't my year, is it?
You're getting it out of the way early. The rest of the year is going to be great.
2025, like I said, surgery, accident, and he still finds the time to threaten me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not threatening you.
You've threatened me in the past, though.
Oh, I have.
This year.
But I was, when I threatened you, I was 21 years old, not 83.
I don't even know where I was then. All right, let's talk about college basketball. The tournament selection for the men's and women's come up next weekend. I asked you while we were in the commercial break. I'm not ashamed to admit this. I didn't know what the Bears did. But I don't think I wanted to know when he told me.
The season's over. It ended after their first game. They played Illinois State, and I really personally thought that this is the tournament I'm talking about. I thought that the Bears would play very well. They had been right at the verge of coming up with some big upsets. Last Sunday when we were here, hey, the Bears took Drake, the number one team, into overtime for the second time this year. Played them twice in overtime. Didn't win the games, but still, I thought this team's right on the edge. Well, they were not on the edge on Thursday against Illinois State.
Fell off the edge.
They fell off it pretty quick. 70-54, the Bears lost that final game of the season. They finished 2-18 in the Missouri Valley Conference, and I believe it's 9-22 for the season. So this is really one of their poorer years ever. Understandable. Because when Coach Martin took over, which was virtually a year ago at this time, not literally, but enough so that he had not been able to recruit the number of players that he wanted, nor the caliber of players that he wanted. It did bring in 14 new players, and really it took him a season to adjust to each other. Has some good talent. Now we find out, if any of these guys are going to leave. There's a transfer portal to talk about and so forth and so on. But, again, you're running into a situation which the Bears going into a new conference next year in all sports. Every single one of the sporting athletic programs at Missouri State goes into Conference USA for the numbers of sports that Conference USA has, and football, basketball, and baseball are among them. Well, we'll have new opponents. We'll have a new level of athletic discipline that's forthcoming, but you also have a new source of revenue, and that's the important thing. It'll take the Bears football and basketball teams probably time to adjust, maybe the baseball team as well, but there will be a period when fans will have to understand this is whole new competition coming in, but it's an exciting new era coming in for Missouri State, and I'm really anxious about it.
So who are the teams that we should be paying the most attention to, excuse me, as we go into the college basketball, as we go into the tournament?
Well, certainly the Southeastern Conference tournament, which is held in Nashville at the Bridgestone Arena, is a big one because all of those teams, with the possible exception of South Carolina, all of them are really capable of doing some things. The big teams are Auburn, which did lose yesterday to Alabama.
Roll Tide.
At Auburn. And Roll Tide is Alabama's a good team. Auburn, Alabama, Florida, they're all
Tennessee
great teams.
is pretty good.
Tennessee is terrific. And these teams, even Kentucky, which went into Columbia yesterday and knocked off the Missouri Tigers, Missouri has a good team. Mm-hmm. All those Southeastern Conference teams are really capable. Vanderbilt another good one. How
Nice.
many are going to emerge from that conference tournament and make it into the NCAA? I've heard as many as 13. I don't think it'll be quite that many, but certainly 9 or 10 have a big chance. ACC, I really do like the way Duke plays. They're a really, really good basketball team. They won last night at Chapel Hill, beat North Carolina. They go into the ACC tournament. You have the Big Ten Conference tournament, which is wide open. Michigan State could win this one. Any number of teams, UCLA, Southern Cal, they're all Big Ten Conference teams. They could do it. The Big 12, oh my goodness sake, you have any number of teams coming in. Here's Kansas, which is relegated to the nether regions, and they knock off Arizona yesterday, and that tournament's up in Kansas City. So there are so many things that can happen, but Selection Sunday is a week from today. You select, of course, there are 32 conference champions, and that would mean there are 38 who are at-large teams because you have a team of, no, I'm sorry, that's my math is wrong here. 32 conference champs, and there's 68 teams, so that would be 30. That's not 38. That's right, 38 teams who go in as at-large members, and that'll take some decision by the conference committee that's forthcoming. So it's a wide-open circumstance, and there'll be a lot of fun. My pick for national champion had been Auburn right away. Bruce Pearl's team is really, really loaded. They have great players, but they did lose yesterday. You never can tell what might happen. I think it'll be a terrific, wide-open tournament with maybe some major surprises coming in because parity has taken over in college basketball. Any of these teams can win.
Has Bruce Pearl learned his lesson yet?
Pearl's a good coach. Yeah,
he is, but he's also,
he's a little shaky. He had his problems.
I changed that word a little bit.
Shady.
Well, he did some things that may have been sidestepping the rules a little bit, but the man has a terrific background. I remember when he brought his Wisconsin-Milwaukee team down here. It's been about, 15, 17 years ago, played in a holiday tournament down here and won the thing. Boy, he had a great team like that, and he's quite a personality to have, too, to be interviewed by the media. He's really an interesting guy, but he's very, very, very good basketball coach, very good.
When you look at the top 25, it's filled with names in college basketball that you're familiar with. Duke, Auburn being there, Houston, a name that's been back the last couple of seasons, Tennessee, Florida, St. John's, Alabama, Michigan State. Couple of big names missing from the list, and you mentioned it, Kansas and North Carolina, both missing from that list.
North Carolina is not the North Carolina of the past. They have not. In fact, I'm not sure that Hubert Davis is going to make it through the rest of this year. They'll get into the tournament. They're get into the
NIT.
No, well, they may be NIT. Excuse me. They'll get into their conference tournament, of course, with no problem at all. The ACC tournament, but there are a number of good teams in there that can win the thing, including Duke. And I think Duke is probably going to be it. Duke went to Chapel Hill last night and defeated North Carolina. It's a team that just is missing a certain link about them. They're not the Tar Heels of the past, but it's a well-rounded league. Connecticut, 6-time national champs, they're in that. They can play it. There's just so many circumstances that can be answered in this thing in a lot of ways. But the fact of the matter remains, it could be any team, any one of the teams that's chosen to be in this tournament, with maybe the exception of some of the
play-in games,
the play-in winners, or maybe some from the lesser conferences that get chosen.
That's the beauty of college basketball. College basketball is the last bastion of the Cinderella because it doesn't happen in college football anymore. It doesn't really happen in the pro leagues anymore. It's a lot more difficult anyway. But every year you're going to have a couple of teams that are lower seed that end up, or higher seed, whatever you want to say, that end up in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. You always see it, and that's what I love about it. Because it doesn't matter what bracket you fill out, some team is going to bust your bracket because they have a great game against a team and play up to that challenge.
That's the point of having the parity in college basketball with the transfer portal and NIL has brought about that parity because you're good players with every team, and it's just it. Any team can win, and one game can make a very big difference.
So one team in college basketball that's really been immune from any sort of down year has been Kansas. What's going on with them this year?
A down year that a lot of things didn't come together for them. They got the big kid from Michigan who transferred down there, Hunter Dickinson, a good player. But somehow he didn't seem to really fit into their scheme of things, and as a result, they got hammered by Brigham Young beat them by something like 35 or 40 out in Provo, Utah. That did not sit well at all. Texas Tech, Houston. It was Houston that came from behind and beat Kansas in double overtime in Lawrence. And, the fans didn't like that at all. So there have been a number of them, but it's a formula, and there's a lot of chemistry. You hear about coaches saying we don't have quite the chemistry. Oh, that's what they mean. Key players on there, it's not that they're playing badly, it's they don't fit in with the knowledge of what their partners are going to do, and there's just any number of facets to the game that really weren't gelling for Kansas this year, but might, Joe. That's just it. Might as the tournaments come around.
Do you think that some of this may be a product of the nil, that you see teams that they get good players from this nil open portal, but maybe they just, when you bring in a guy on a yearly basis, bring in new guys on a yearly basis, how can teams gel together?
It's more the portal than it is the nil, but the nil does figure into it. Did with Dickinson from Kansas. He comes down from Michigan because he got, I think, $500,000 a year more with a nil. I think I'll go down there. Thank you. Well, the fact is that both play a key role, but yeah, that's exactly what it's brought about. The transfer portal has maintained a level that players always wanted, and that is, I can play at that other school down there if I only had the chance. Now they have the chance, if that other team wants them. But the fact remains you've got to apply for it, and there's going to be a regulation before too much longer as to how many times that can be utilized.
When we come back, we'll tell you, how we'll spend our Sunday afternoons. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Hey, I just want to mention that we do this also as a podcast. You can download that. There's a guy sitting in the other room right now. That's all his job is. He comes here for an hour and he loads it up as a podcast and puts it on the website. So if you missed this conversation, you can listen to it anytime you like. Or if you want to go back and just take notes, like transcribe it down, well, you can do that too. Find that on our website through your Cave smartphone app, or just search out Ned Talk wherever you get your podcasts at. I'm Joe Westen. Ned Reynolds is picking his shirt. Josh Roberts is barely awake. But we are doing this show because we are committed.
Dedicated
to this.
It's a cotton shirt, and I'm dedicated to wearing it clean.
Okay.
You're picking off last night's dinner from it or something?
No, nothing like that.
No, breakfast.
Or cat hair.
Cat hair.
No, I'm constantly picking dog hair off everything I own. There's dog glitter is what I call it.
Glitter, I like that.
So how are you going to spend your afternoons? Chores
Well, I
today?
have the usual chores to do on Sunday, and there really isn't anything compelling to watch on TV. Baseball, the exhibition baseball game, there will be some game on there. And
Cardinals and the Yankees are playing this afternoon.
It was the Card Yankees?
Yep.
Playing in Jupiter?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, they played up at Steinbrenner Field last time they got together, and Yankees won it big. I don't remember what the score was, but won it big.
We'll see if there's an Arenado deal
You
today.
know what? Interesting you bring that up, because this may be a second. Arenado denies vehemently that his trip up there to Steinbrenner Field was a showcase. No, it wasn't a showcase. I'm going up there to see friends. Come on. Now, today they play down in Florida, down in Jupiter, I'm pretty sure. And if that's the case, the Yankees brass will be there, and I'm pretty sure Arenado will be in the lineup as well.
Well, as anybody that listens to this show on a regular basis, which thank you, Renee, I'm a Yankees fan, and they're pretty banged up going into the season already, so they may be willing to make a deal at this point.
They have Garrett Cole, who has an elbow problem, and this sounds rather significant.
Yeah.
You don't want that to be the case with your ace. So their training circumstances are going to be a little bit on the limited side. Nonetheless, they may be, because they do have other injuries as well.
Luis Gill, their
Stanton's
rookie
out.
of the year. Stanton's out. DJ LeMahieu is out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So you're just going to do chores and nothing else? Going to maybe watch some college basketball this afternoon?
Well, maybe a little bit of the Valley title game. It all depends. A lot of it depends. I have some homework to do. Even at my age, there's homework.
What about you, Josh? What's on your agenda for this afternoon?
Oh, I've got laundry to do, but then I'm going to try to watch the Washington Capitals game. They play, can't remember who they play, but Ovechkin's 10 goals away from breaking what was once said to be one of the unbreakable records, the career goals record that Wayne Gretzky's held for years. So Ovechkin's closing in on it. He's 10 away. He's playing somebody. I feel like they're playing somebody today that they could beat pretty easily. So I'm sure he'll get at least a goal. So that's what I'll watch.
All right.
Hacky.
As he makes his way towards breaking the record. In case you're wondering, I'm going to watch old episodes of Hawaii Five-0.
I'm sure you are. I love it.
Hawaii 5-0?
Yep.
Book 'em, Dano.
Hey, okay, I was going to tell you this little story. There's a guy that came on that show, and he played Duke. His name was Herman Wedmeyer, I think it was.
Wiedemeyer.
Wiedemeyer. He was a famous college football player.
Sure was, Michigan State.
And he was the best known high school college player to come out of Hawaii at one time. And they said one time in a game, he caught the ball in the end zone as a kick returner, and then he set it on his foot. And all the team walked off the field because they thought he downed it, but the referee knew he didn't, so he picked it up off his foot, and he just jogged to the end zone for a touchdown.
Never heard that one before, but I'm familiar with Wiedemeyer, and his son was also a very good player.
And his brother.
And the brother, right.
We'll see you guys next Sunday at noon, Ned Talk.